Ah, you did it. You finished your script. Hooray! You did it. Months and months of hard work has come to a conclusion. Now what? This is a pretty common question that I received from folks working on their first musicals, and it was asked again recently on one of my community posts here on the channel. Yes, I do actually take your questions and your comments seriously, and I'm the one who reads them. I promise. It's me. It's me. Okay, so you've got a completed script of your show. What are your options from here? Honestly, it depends on where exactly in the process you are and what the needs of your show are at this point, which means there are options. So we should look at those. Let's do it. As you can hear, friends, I am a little under the weather. Just so you know, I will try to keep my coughing to a minimum. That's why we're starting late and doing only half an hour today. Okay, so all of this will depend on where you are in your process on any given show, what you do and do not have, and your level of experience. So, here are some options. See, you hear it? Okay, first and foremost, I would ask of you, is this just a script, or does it include lyrics? Which leads me to ask, if there are lyrics, is there music as well? A full score? Do you have your collaborators already lined up in this process? If you don't, that is your next step. Get the collaborators of the writing team set and settled and see what else you can do on this first draft of your show. So, let's say you come to me, you've got just a script or a script and lyrics, but there's no music. Okay? Then you clearly need to get some collaborators to bring in because you don't have a full first draft. You've got a first draft pass of script alone or libretto alone, no music. So until you can move on to the next step, which we'll talk about what that could be, then before you can move on, you do need to have the first draft of both the libretto and also the music. So again, if you do not yet at that point have your collaborators lined up and are into the songwriting process for the first draft of your score, that would be your next step. However, maybe that's not the point you're at. Let's say script and score, or as much of the score as you can do, is done. What then? My next question to you would be, is this a first pass of the show? Like a true first draft with a lowercase f? I call it a first draft pass, or I often call it a drafty draft. Drafty draft. It's not the official first draft. Or are you at the point now where this is an official, like there's nothing more I can do on this with just like working off of paper alone, kind of official first draft? Or we could call that a first draft with a capital F, right? So if you're in the stage where you've got a first draft patch or a drafty draft, your very next steps are to go back through the show with your collaborators and turn that into a first official draft. One where you cannot do any more work with just your team off the paper. You need people to be reading it and singing it and to learn by doing readings and or workshop sort of stuff. So, if you're in first drafty draft land, get the official first draft. Once you're at a place with the script and the score where you have an official capital F first draft, then you gotta go get it on voices and peoples. Okay, I'll say more about that in a second. For those of you who are in drafty draft land and you're like, but first draft pass, isn't that enough to go forward and do a reading? You can do that. But if there's more work that you can do, you and your collaborators can do, just by looking at the script and the score itself and working on the things that you know are not quite up to par, I say start there. It's time to go digging and slinging through the muck, make a mess out of the draft, because your first draft pass, that drafty draft, should be messy. Absolutely should be messy. You have to begin figuring out what's working towards your goals, what's not working towards your goals, where you went right, where you went wrong. and getting all the excess out of the way. Cut it. Don't be afraid to cut. Because this is that first draft's revision process. And it's going to be messy, and it's going to be tough, and you're going to feel that sense of accomplishment that you had in getting your first draft passed begin to diminish. That's okay. It's all part of the process. And honestly, a revision can be super enjoyable because you're taking something that's not quite correct and you're making it more correct, at least to the best of your abilities as the writers without anyone else in the room. It's also, if you only had a partial score for the end of your first draft, drafty draft, first pass, that sort of thing, then as you go through the first draft revision process, aiming toward that official capital F first draft, that's a great time also to begin filling in the song pieces that you can fill in. If there are spots, gaps where you're like, well, I know a song's gonna go here, I generally know what it is, but didn't have quite enough information at the time to write it. Well, now, as you're going back through your revision process of your drafty draft, that's the time to figure out what it actually is and then write those songs that are missing. And then you can have a finished drafty draft that you're revising into that official first draft. Woo! Hi, friends. If you were not here at the top of the stream, I'll let you know I'm sick. So that's why my voice is a little like, ah, and why we're doing a 30-minute stream today, not a 60 minutes. So I'll stick around a little bit if I have some time. I'm going to take a sip of water so I don't cough. Okay, so if you're at the spot where it's more of an official first draft, the capital F first draft, nothing more that you can do off the paper, you and your collaborators. Well, that's a different story than the draft draft. Okay, so I think the water actually made me cough. Okay, so if it's instead a true first draft and there's nothing more you can do, it's time to get people to help you out. And this is where a reading is going to come in. If you're still relatively new to the process of writing a musical, my suggestion is going to be to keep this first reading as casual as you possibly can. This will not only then be a closed reading, but a reading with friends or writer friends, colleagues, people that you would trust with the fragile newborn that is your official first draft. Because it is going to be a fragile little newborn, and it's a very, very vulnerable experience. But in essence, what you need at this point is you need to hear some people other than yourself reading the materials and giving their preliminary thoughts in the most loving and gentle way possible. Because, again, if you're new to doing this, the process of like opening up your chest and handing people your heart, you gotta get some reps under you before you invite some larger criticisms in that are less loving and less gentle. So, these people that you invite to your first closed reading, your first casual closed reading, don't need to be theatrical folks or performers, just people who aren't you, who are loving and gentle, and who you trust. You can play demos, you can play and sing yourself, you can just play snippets of the music in like MIDI form and read through the lyrics just to give people a sense of what the songs are. You just need to hear your story and your characters aloud, done by someone who isn't you. That's the important part, okay? Now, if you're like, hey, I'm not a first timer. What about me? Do I still do that? You can. You absolutely can. I think there's always, especially if a show is different or weird or you've never written anything like it before, I think it's always a good idea to start with a casual closed reading. Always. But if you're like, no, no, I know what this show is. I've written this kind of show before. I'm a little more experienced. Then you can skip that closed casual the first time around, and you can move straight to a regular old closed reading. You may want a larger group of people in the room, and maybe they're not just strictly friends, but are still creating a friendly and kind atmosphere. We don't want to invite toxicity into a closed reading. That's not fun for anyone. But you may then have some performers reading and singing some of the material, or you could keep it more casual still. Like even with a larger room, you may still want to play demos. Depends on the style of the show. Maybe the show loses something with just a pianist and a vocalist singing live because it's a four-piece band kind of show and you've got great demos. Okay, play the demos. But you can also sing live here. And I would suggest having people who are actors, who are performers, reading the roles. You're going to learn a lot more about your characters that way, their arcs, the way they interact with one another. And also, it's good to have an MD on the material, or even just an accompanist on the material to help point out things that perhaps you're not knowing or seeing because you wrote the piece. So, you definitely need people who are performers who are going to bring the characters to life here. But it's also still a kind, warm atmosphere. Invite only the people you want to be inviting in. And you're still going to want feedback here. But you're going to curate it, hopefully, so you can hear both the good stuff and the constructive stuff. Okay. The reason that I do the feedback process that I do in all of my coaching, in the collective, in my courses, is because we need the combination platter. This is how we grow best. We need the combo platter of knowing what's working and knowing what's not. So you've got to have both things in there. I know writers, I know you all love to be like, no, 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 just slap me in the face. Tell me it's terrible. And I'll go from there. Like, what, but for what purpose? Why should I tell you it's terrible? Why don't I tell you what's good in there and then tell you the things that aren't working? And how about I say it kindly? You know? Not a, I promise, it's useful. I think it's the best way. Okay. So you're going to want feedback and you're going to want it curated in some regard to hear both the good stuff and the constructive stuff. For this stage, you probably don't want a director. There's no real need. It's a closed reading. People will either be kind of like in a circle, or you may have some music stands and some chairs for the cast and people who are watching and listening, looking at them, however you want to do it. But you probably want a live accompanist unless there's a reason to play demos instead. And closed, not a real audience, right? Just the people that you want to see it and hear it and get feedback from, in addition to the cast and the accompanist or MD. Okay. Can you hear me struggling today? So sorry, friends. So those are the major next steps. And it depends on where you are in your process and your experience level and what your show needs at that moment in time. So again, just to go back through it, quick overall review. If you have just the script without music, whether that's script and lyrics without music or script, no music and lyrics, get your collaborators first, finish your first full drafty draft of book and score. Both. Once you have that, take your drafty draft, go back through it, revise, fill in the things that are missing, and turn it into a full first draft. That means doing revision work. Let it be messy. Once you get to the point of a full first draft, then we got to hear it aloud. Do it either if you are less uh, experienced in the world of musical theater writing and this is your first time, or it's a new kind of piece. Keep it small, keep it casual. Okay? Only invite in friends and people that you trust and you know and you love. They don't have to be performers. But if you can skip past that and go to the next kind of closed reading, do it where you still have people who you love in the room and who you trust, but you also have performers reading the material and or singing the material. You'll learn so much by doing that. Director is not necessary. You can have a director in the room if you know one and you love one and want to hear their thoughts. You can have an MD or you can just have an accompanist. But you want to hear what the piece sounds like aloud. Then from there, you're going to get feedback. It's going to be time to dig in to revision land. And that's where we go back to not the drawing board, hopefully, go back into the process of revising, going from a first official draft through the muck, through the mire, through the rewriting, getting to a point where you have an official second draft. And then you can do whatever the next step is for your show at that point. which may be an open reading, a closed reading, a festival, a workshop, all sorts of things. Could be. Depends on where you are. That is the answer to the question. I never said who I am. If you like information like this, hi, I'm musical theater writer guy, aka your musical theater writing coach. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. And this is what I talk about is musical theater writing and the development process. So if that's of interest to you, hey, like, subscribe, do the things, stick around. Usually these live streams, I'm not sick, so we usually spend a full hour, usually start at 11 Eastern time, and we will go through the full hour with an Ask Me Anything at the end. Today, I'm not going to do that. I've just got to take care of my voice and take care of my energy today. But thank you for being here, friends. If you have questions on anything that I talked about today, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will do my best to respond, and or I'll make a new video to answer some of those questions. Otherwise, friends, if you want a community, come join us in Musical Theater Writing Collective. We do all sorts of great events. We help walk you through your process, and you don't have to do this alone. You also may meet collaborators along the way or get new ideas. Who's to say? So, for all of you who joined me live today, thank you so much for being here. I apologize again for the short stream and the illness, and I will look forward to seeing you all for some Write With Me next Friday, and then a video in 2 weeks. All right, everybody, have a great and lovely weekend.